Hey guys, I'm gonna review Terminator Genisys. They used that sound effect way too much in the movie. That sound. Why do I have coins in my pocket now? It's not important. Good movie. I did not have very high expectations. I'd like to preface this by saying I haven't seen any of the other Terminator movies, so yeah. Jesus. But I don't know. Like I kind of had low expectations because it was like weird. They using Arnold, they spoiled a major plot twist in the trailers. I didn't watch any of the trailers, but I heard about that. Yeah, and it comes to think of it, I didn't watch a single trailer for the movie because I don't know. It just looked so like not interesting to me. But my friend wanted to see it, so I'm like, all right, and I actually liked it. Arnold wasn't as like cheesy as I thought he'd be. Like they didn't do the he, let's have Arnold recite a bunch of his old of his old catchphrases for humor, ha 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 approach that some of the movies do. He only said "I'll be back" like once, and it was like tossed aside. Like okay, all right. Like they didn't have anybody react to it or anything. He said "nice to see you" a lot. I'm not sure if that was a thing he said in older movies, but other than that, and like one "I'll be back," he didn't do much. He didn't say "Hasta la vista, baby" or anything like that. Um, but no, I actually really liked it. It's kind of like a reboot, but it's also a sequel because it's the same events as the first movie with well, sort of the same events with different actors. At least I think it's the same events as the first movie. I haven't seen the first movie, but it's Kyle Reese getting sent back in time by John Connor to save Sarah Connor from a Terminator, which happens to be Arnold. But they put a spin on it, which if you really want to go into this, no spoilers, and you haven't even seen the trailers and you don't know about the major plot twist that was spoiled, then you should probably click off now because I am going to talk about the plot twist. I figure it was in the trailers, so I shouldn't really have to. So I'm not going to be spoiling anybody, but just in case you're like me and you didn't watch the trailers and didn't hear about the plot twist, then go ahead and click off. But so basically, it starts out with young Arnold getting sent back, which it was. I say young Arnold because old Arnold shows up later in the movie and is in it for most of it. But it's like the very beginning. Young Arnold shows up. He's like, "I am Terminator," and he tries to steal some dude's clothes because in order to time travel, they had to take their clothes off, which was weird. But whatever. Um, the reason was like something about like anything that's not like organic material gets destroyed in the time traveling machine, which doesn't even make any sense because the Terminator, the young Arnold Terminator, was able to be sent back, but John Connor was too. Oh yes, that's the twist. John Connor is a Terminator. That's the big twist. I wish it wasn't. I wish I hadn't had it spoiled for me before because they do play it like if I didn't know that twist, it would have been more entertaining. Because he shows up like halfway into the movie. Basically, they have to go to 2017 to stop the Skynet apocalypse, which is linked to like this new like hard software for like phones and computers and stuff called Genisys, hence the name term. Now I understand why it was called Terminator Genisys with the stupid Y in between the S's and the S, and now I can't be as annoyed about that anymore. Not that I was really that annoyed about that before, but whatever. Which they kind of stole that from Kingsman a little bit. Like they even have the well, no, actually, Kingsman didn't. Well, the people with with Valentine's app didn't have a countdown timer, but yeah, they kind of stole that from Kingsman with the countdown clock to world destruction linked to like a new service on phones. They did the same thing, but I suppose that was their way of like updating the whole theme of how will the machine or has our technology gone too far? Will the machines take over, kind of thing? And they like that's the kind of thing they changed the plotline to where the apocalypse happens in 2017 instead of 1997. With that way the movie won't be outdated, although it will be in 2 years. So I would have said 2027, but whatever. Um, oh, but and they change little stuff like like basically Kyle Reese gets sent back to save Sarah Connor, but this time Sarah Connor already knows about Terminators. That's the big twist. And I the backstory's a little weird. Basically, Terminators killed her parents, and old Arnold Terminator, who was programmed to protect Sarah Connor, has been protecting her for years, which wasn't explained very well in this movie for something that was trying to be both a reboot and a sequel. It was quite a bit confusing. I mean, everything was explained technically, but like it wasn't explained. Like her backstory is explained, but it wasn't explained who sent back old Arnold and all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure was in the older movies, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But like speaking from the perspective of someone who's never seen one before, and knowing that it's sort of trying to be a reboot, which is also weird because it ends in a very there is no way there can be another Terminator movie kind of ending. I don't know if the other ones end like that too, but yeah. Um, but yeah, the time travel stuff is surprisingly confusing for an action movie. I mean, it's not like Doctor Who confusing, but it was somewhat confusing. Speaking of Doctor Who, there is an actor from Doctor Who in this movie. You might have heard Matt Smith is in the movie. Unfortunately, his character is probably the weakest part of the movie, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. That I kind of have to go into spoiler territory more so than I already am to do that. So, yeah. But no, I liked what they did with it. Arnold wasn't annoying like I kind of thought he might be. No, because he was probably one of the best characters in the movie actually because he was like robotic and his movements were robotic and the whole I don't understand emotion thing, blah 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 blah. I'm Terminator, Arnold, which they could have just made dumb. I actually think they did that well. Uh like they did it for comedy and it was actually funny. Like I mean, you kind of know they're going to do that for comedy because nobody's going to be able to take robotic Arnold Terminator seriously anymore. I mean, they could back in the when it was the 80s, but now they can't really take it seriously. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to move this table over so it's easier to move around, but there's a thing in my way. Jesus Christ. All right, whatever. Okay. Well, basically, they did it, and it wasn't done stupidly. Like the comedy was actually smart. Well, I don't know if I call it smart, but it wasn't annoying. The one thing that I didn't like that they did with Arnold was constantly they did this far too much. Like there wasn't a lot of suspense in the movie, which the old ones apparently were suspense thrillers. At least that's what I've been told. I wouldn't call this a thriller. I'd almost call this a sci-fi flick because it wasn't even like it was action, but it wasn't like super action. Then again, I guess most action movies nowadays aren't like 80s, like to the extreme of 80s action. They're a little more subdued. Like they try to do like have developed characters or stuff, or at least the good ones do. I guess because we have higher standards now. I don't know, but they do this so often. Like at least half of the suspense was they're in a fight scene. Oh no, someone with a something explodes. Is something coming? And then it walks in and it's just old Arnold who like blew up a door and just walked in or something. And you always think it's gonna be a Terminator, and then it ends up being Arnold, and I'm just like, oh, freaking movie. And there's the apex of this is at the very end of the movie, which kind of goes into the medicine. But no, Arnold is other than that, They do the comedy for him well, and they also make it feel like he really does kind of have emotions, despite acting like he doesn't. Because it's like it's clear he cares about Sarah Connor after like raising her since she was 9, which is when her parents were killed by a Terminator. And he's kind of like a father figure, and they do that well. I really liked his character. His was interesting, and the movie was very self aware about it, but not to the point where it's like tooting its own horn. Like, oh yeah, remember Arnold in this movie? Remember Arnold back in the original Terminator movies? Remember him? Remember him? I didn't feel like they were doing that, which is what kind of my fear that they were going to do, but they didn't do that, and I was happy about that. Also, I'd like to say that young Arnold and old Arnold fight, which is the best thing ever. That's how the young Arnold Terminator dies. Is he actually does early in the movie? Basically, Kyle Reese gets sent back. The very next scene is Sarah Connor killing the new Terminator with a sniper rifle, which I don't know why they made him so easy to kill, considering he was literally Skynet's last hope. Because literally, the very beginning of the movie, I'm saying literally too much, but the like beginning of the movie, they stop Skynet, and then it's all just them like trying to fix the past. But Matt Smith, I think, but yeah, good movie. My only issues were the over reliance of Arnold jump scares. That's what I'm calling them now, Arnold jump scares. The moment where you think it's a fight scene, you think it's going to be another Terminator, and then it's just Buddy Arnold again. I'm calling that the Arnold jump scare from now on, and they use it like 10 times. Well, I don't know about 10. They use it at least 5 times. They use it enough for it to be irritating. And so that is my only problem with the movie. My other problem was Matt Smith's character. Not due to his acting at all. If you don't want to hear this part, just go ahead and click off, because that's pretty much all I'm going to talk about. Because the plot was good, the action was good, everything was good about the movie except for these two things except for the Arnold jump scares and the Matt Smith stuff that I'm about to talk about. So I recommend you go see this movie. It's a good movie. It's not bad. It's not even okay. I wouldn't call it great like an Age of Ultron, or great like Max Fury Road supposedly is. I haven't seen Mad Max yet. But I liked it. I liked it a lot. I wouldn't even call it like I don't know. I'd say it's about on par with X-Men Days of Future Past, maybe a little worse. I don't know. But yeah. Okay. But Matt Smith, I had a problem with this character. I nothing due to his acting. He didn't do bad at all. They just he shows up in the beginning right after John Connor sends Kyle Reese back. He kills all the soldiers that are in there. He basically reveals himself to be the embodiment of Skynet, and he can turn like the human embodiment of the Skynet AI, not just like a mindless robot. And he says a line when he's like turning John Connor into a Terminator. I don't remember what it was, but it was some like time related line that made me I was just sitting there like, am I watching Doctor Who again? Because it totally sounded like a Doctor Who line, like something out of Doctor Who. And I was like, hmm. But he turns John Connor into a Terminator, which is essential to the plot. But then they really screw him up at the end, where basically at the end, as the apocalypse is about to happen, he starts maturing and like becoming Matt Smith. So he starts out as like this kid that represents Skynet, and then grows into it, which already was stupid enough. Just the human embodiment of Skynet. Oh, I'm the human embodiment of the AI. I'm different than the other robots. Already stupid enough. But then he never poses a real threat to them. He'll like, as they're stopping John Connor, he pops up as holograms, because that's all he ever shows up at in the end, holograms. In the beginning, he shows up in like a physical form, but before that, never. He shows up as holograms, or after that, I guess. I don't know. He keeps showing up as holograms, like saying stupid things like "You'll never stop me." Except for he hides his accent pretty well. it's like us. He diminishes it. Uh, he's like, I'm gonna stop you. You'll never be able to stop us. Give up. This is hopeless. You know, the standard cliche stuff, and they just like shoot whatever the hologram device is projecting him, and then he pops up on another one that's just like freaking annoying. I thought for sure he was gonna like take human form and have them fight him, since he was in human form in the beginning of the movie, so you know he can take human form eventually. He never does. And that was like, they defeat John Connor, and then they're free, and they're like, oh, we've defeated Skynet. And then they hug Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor. Well, did they hug? Or I think they kissed in that scene, actually. I don't know. And then a blade shows up, and the door bursts down, and there's like a shadowy figure walking up, and they're like scared. And then it was old Arnold again. They freaking did the Arnold jump scare at the very end to like scary, which I wouldn't have minded so much, except for that I thought it was going to be human Matt Smith walking up and fighting them. The only reason I could think of that they didn't do that was maybe it wouldn't seem like he was a big enough threat to fight after they fought John Connor, but the fact that they didn't have Arnold with them at that point because he had to like jump into the time machine to fight John Connor, which for some reason deteriorated them both, even though it didn't deteriorate the new Arnold from the beginning of the movie. That was not well explained at all. For whatever reason, old Arnold could not get in the time machine. But then they don't even explain how he escaped and John Connor didn't. They're just like, oh yeah, I escaped, and then they go off and be happy and stuff, and it's like, oh, movie, why? But the only reason I can think of that they wouldn't have them fight Matt Smith is that he wouldn't be intimidating after they fought John Connor. But at the same time, even that doesn't work, because the fact that they don't have Arnold with them to help them fight, and the fact that he can turn people into robots, into Terminators with a mere touch of the hand, those two things alone make so that shouldn't be a concern. I don't know why, because he posed no threat. Like he was in the beginning where he turned John Connor into a Terminator, and that was cool. I liked that scene, and he killed all the other soldiers there, so you know he was a threat there. But then they never deliver on it at the end of the movie. The only way I could see his character, the only way I could see them like delivering on that threat is if they make another movie. I didn't even think of this when I was in the theater. They could be setting it up for a sequel with him as the main villain. But if they're doing that, knowing Hollywood, you'd think they would have done something at the end of the movie where it like zooms into a computer screen or something, like slowly zooms into a computer screen and then like it blinks on or something, like pew, and just like implying that it's Skynet. But they didn't do anything like that. They gave it a strong air of finality, which implies that they're never actually going to deliver on the third. And even if they do deliver on it in a sequel, I'm still going to be kind of annoyed because they didn't need to do it with a sequel. They could have just done it at the end of that movie. That part really irritates me, especially since I like Matt Smith. Like, if it was just a no-name actor that I didn't know, I probably wouldn't care. But it's like, I wanted more Matt Smith. He was barely in the movie, which was unfortunate. But other than Matt Smith and Arnold jump scares, this movie was entirely good. I mean, everything was explained pretty well outside of a few things. The comedy was good, the action was good. I'd almost call it more of a sci-fi movie than an action movie or a thriller, just because of how much like time travel stuff there was, and because there was a lot that they time travel twice. Like he goes back to save Sarah Connor in 1984, and then they go forward to 2017 to fight John Connor, except they don't know they're fighting John Connor. They just think they're going forward to stop Skynet from being created, or from activating the apocalypse. But I liked the John Connor Terminator twist. I wish I hadn't known about it beforehand, but whatever, that's not the movie's fault, that's the trailer's fault. Yeah, good movie. I'd recommend you go see it. I mean, if you haven't already seen Age of Ultron, or I guess, again, I haven't seen Mad Max Fury Road, so I don't know. I'm not. I haven't seen Jurassic World. I was gonna go see it with my friends, but I was out of town. But from what I've heard about it, I've heard more praise for Terminator Genisys than I have for Jurassic World. But I've heard far more praise for Mad Max than both of them, so I really need to see Mad Max at some point. But go see Terminator Genisys. It was good. I enjoyed it. I put it about on par with X-Men Days of Future Past, if that gives you some idea of its quality level. Arrivederci!